Hey guys, welcome back to Greener Pastures, the podcast where we talk about environmental initiatives that can help us create a greener future for all. I'm your host, Maddie. In particular, today we're going to talk about the connection between trade policy and environmental issues. Let's get into it. The promotion of a cleaner and greener global economy is becoming an increasingly significant conversation within governments, businesses, and between states. Today I will be covering the impacts the current international trade model has on the environment, the clashes that are occurring between different trade regimes, the restrictions the WTO places on states' ability to implement environmental measures, and finally we'll be analysing the concepts of process and production methods and border tax adjustments. The cover art for today's podcast is a watercolour and fine liner piece I created. This is a very special view for me at Lake Eildon and reminds me how important it is to preserve our beautiful environment, not exploit it. To start off with, I want to unpack the idea of the scale effect. The scale effect is the current model that states are engaged in that is an export-driven development model. The first obvious positive is that increased trade brings about increased economic growth and efficiency. Efficient production uses less resources, which can lead to states having more resources to increase their environmental protection measures. Secondly, the economic wealth that comes from trade can increase the funding states have to put towards conservation efforts. Another positive is that more efficient firms that can utilise more greener technologies can export their products to other states that may be lacking in cleaner solutions. The comparative advantage argument highlights that states export goods that best suit their environmental conditions, which is a good thing, and we know that freer markets result in greater allocative efficiency. Now let's talk about the negative effects. Firstly, the export-driven development model can result in the overexploitation of scarce environmental resources. For example, think about the overfishing that is destroying our oceans' ecosystems and the deforestation that is occurring to produce, say, wooden chairs. Secondly, this model that defines international trade treats the environment as an externality. The price we pay at the shops for the final traded product does not include the environmental cost it took to grow or manufacture, even transport a product. Finally, the model fuels overproduction and overconsumption. Our states are addicted to growth, but as consumers, we are not made to pay for the cost of our late-night shopping addiction on our environment. Let's look at some of the clashes that occur between different regimes in international law. There is much debate within the literature about whether international trade agreements legally constrain or help member states to make independent choices about domestic environmental regulations. It is clear that our current system of neoliberalism places substantial significance on opening up markets and not enough weight on the externalities such as the environment and labour. In addition to this, there is much confusion around whether these multilateral trade rules and laws are or are not compatible with multinational environmental agreements, known as MEAs. MEAs are essentially agreements between 3 or more states that assist with addressing specific environmental problems at national, regional, and global levels. Under the Basel Convention, parties are not allowed to export hazardous waste to another party that has banned its import or to non-parties. The Montreal Protocol lists certain ozone-depleting substances and bans trade in those substances between parties and non-parties. It is good to see that the Montreal Protocol is additionally considering banning substances that are made with these ozone-depleting substances. Despite these MEAs being incredibly positive in their effect to safeguard the environment, they actually clash with the rules of the WTO. The WTO's most favoured nations rule claimed that all members must be given the same treatment. However, here the MEAs are dictating that certain members may or may not have to align with these environmental agreements. Therefore, it is unclear which agreement overrides the other. It appears that the WTO, in contrast, are not being very progressive in order to protect the environment. The WTO places more importance on ensuring that environmental measures are least trade restrictive, as opposed to ensuring that international trade is least environmentally damaging. In Article 20 of the Marrakesh Agreement, which established the WTO, there are two sections that restrict the environmental measures states are able to implement. Paragraph B claims that trade measures such as quotas and tariffs are allowed if they are necessary to protect human, animal, or plant life or health. Paragraph G says that domestic producers and consumers must have the same rules for international trade measures to be used. Therefore, states must impact their domestic markets to employ environmental measures. A concept that could become very advantageous to environmental protection measures are the process and production methods known as PPMs. A process or production method refers to the way a product is made. A final product may not harm the environment, however, the process of production may have involved damage to the environment. Traditionally, the WTO rules do not question how a product is produced, but only whether the product itself harms the environment. However, states could produce an inventory of environmentally suitable process and production standards and ban all foreign products that do not meet the standards. This would be a major development in environmental protection. A similar concept is border tax adjustments, known as BTAs, which states can implement to similarly incentivize companies to produce products in an environmentally suitable way. However, the most significant issue with states employing PPMs and BTAs is their impact on the trade of developing countries. Firstly, developed states rely on outsourcing and subcontracting the production of these goods to developing states. The many subcontracted facilities in these developing countries do not have the resources to conduct their production using less carbon-intensive methods. And secondly, developing countries are generally unable to match the technological efficiencies and resources required to lower the negative impact their production methods have on the environment. Thanks for listening.